The man with 10 years, I'd like to introduce Brad B.
Okay, I'm back. I'm Brad. I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad to be here, and I'm definitely glad to be sober. Um, Dan said he sent me my 10-year coin. It's got an X on it. I wish I was able to pass it around. I saw Cliff get on earlier. He mentioned the other night that he misses meetings. He likes seeing people get coins and passing those coins around. It's kind of fun to pass that around and check it out. And some people, they like to have a little moment with it and say a little prayer. He also sent me a card, Bill Wilson card. For those of you who don't recognize Bill Wilson, he's one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Dan's kind of he's more of a Dr. Bob guy, but he has a lot of admiration for Bill Wilson too. Dr. Bob was he was really into working with other alcoholics, and Dan's gonna catch him. He's aspiring to work with over 5,000 alcoholics before he's done. But anyway, my sobriety date is it was February 21st. I got sober in 2011. I was asked by my employer to to say it exactly like he did. He wanted me to get my shit together. That's kind of how people that don't understand alcoholism see what our problem is. They want us to get it together and get back to some sort of a normal. And he asked me if I would go to rehab, and I was I didn't think I had this. I knew I drank a lot, and I probably drank too much, but I didn't really think I was an alcoholic. But in order to get him off my back, I agreed to go to a treatment center down in Chandler in Arizona here. What led up to that was many years of drinking. I didn't get sober until I was 43 years old. That's when I went down to Chandler. I'd been working with this employer at the time for probably about 16 or 17 years. And while I had a lot of trouble with my ex-wife and family problems and friend problems and problems with everybody else, that never seemed to really sink in. But when my boss kind of suggested, and at the time I thought it was kind of a suggestion, but it was actually more of an ultimatum that I needed to go. I needed to get this taken care of, or I wasn't gonna be able to work there anymore. I started drinking when I was a teenager. A lot of us start drinking when we're teenagers. I think a lot of people can identify with that. Not everybody, but it starts off with sneaking some beers with your friends or whatever. For us, it was a lot of beer drinking, and it was fun. That's what we were doing. It was all about having a good time and just partying, and it was just kind of something that we did. Nobody thinks that they're gonna start drinking and become an alcoholic and end up in Alcoholics Anonymous, so we don't think a lot about the consequences of it. And most people don't. Most people can handle alcohol, and I just so happen to not drink like everybody else. I started drinking a lot, probably in my early 20s. But like I said, I never really thought I was drinking abnormally or any of that. I never paid a lot of attention. It never occurred to me that I was an alcoholic, and I handled drinking for many, many, many years. It really wasn't a problem. I went to work every morning. I'm a machinist. I started working, kind of moved up into higher positions, and my skills improved, and I just got more and more experience, and I've just kept doing the thing. You work during the day and you have some beers after work, and just carry on. When I was in my early 20s, one company I worked for, the president of that company, he was from Europe, and him and his brother had a shop in Switzerland, and he asked me if I wanted to go work over there for a while. And I went to work in Switzerland, and I had an apartment by myself, and I would do a lot of drinking there. Sometimes socially, but other times, on the weekends and stuff, I would just kind of be hanging out in my apartment when I wasn't out doing stuff. But I kind of started to learn how to drink by myself when I was over there. I didn't think a lot about it, but I found myself drinking some. I was drinking heavy out. Had Canadian whiskey or some different kinds of hard alcohol, and I did not like hard alcohol, but I wanted to get this buzz, and I kind of felt like I wanted to have a buzz, but I didn't think much about it. I was over there for a year. It never really caused any problems. I was over there for a year, and I came back, and I got I got married with my wife, and we ended up having some kids, and just having a just seemed like a regular normal life. I'd work and had kids, and I got a couple of daughters, and just seemed like a regular normal family. My drinking probably, it started to progress. I started drinking longer. It's not coming home after work, drinking with buddies. We'd drink, a few beers, and then, it was just it was a slow progression on what was going on with the drinking until, until towards the end, about the last 3 years of my drinking, my wife left. The girls went with her. We still live in the same town, so we kind of shared the kids and back and forth, and it was the last probably about a year was some pretty heavy drinking. I was always I'm a beer drunk. I like beer. I drink a lot of beer. I drink beer when I wake up. I drink beer at break at work. I drink beer at lunch at work, and then I drink beer until the end of the night, until it was pass out time or go to bed time. Usually a combination of both. The last several months of drinking was the routine was wake up in the morning, start a pot of coffee, go to the garage, walk by the mini fridge, grab a beer, suck the beer down, smoke, and then go back in the house, grab a cup of coffee, get dressed, and grab another beer for the ride to work, and get going. I was pretty much, if I'm awake, I'm I'm wanting to drink, or I am drinking. I don't know how I got away with it. It worked the way I did. I was still productive. I could still work, could still maintain. I kept my distance, and was just kind of able to. Well, in my mind, I thought I was pulling it off, but like I said, my I was starting to create a lot of problems at work, um, and, uh, and then the boss finally said, "Hey, man, I need you to, I want you to go get sober. I want you to go to rehab." Another guy that I worked with, he was actually one of my good drinking buddies, and he spiraled out a couple years before I did. I didn't identify with what he did. He was a Jack Daniels guy, and all I did was drink beer. But I want you to go. He basically said, "I want you to go do what this guy did." You know, I don't I don't know what he did or what he's doing now, but I like I like I like what he is now and not what he was. And I want you to do the same thing. And yeah, I agreed. Um, I went to rehab, and that was I don't know, that was, let's say it was a Monday or something, and by that following Sunday I was in rehab. That last week, um, I told him, "Hey, well, yeah, I'll do this, but I need to get my affairs in order." And he said, "Okay, that's fine, but I want this to happen, not in 6 months. I want it to happen, right now." So I took the rest of that week off and found a place where I could go to rehab. And that last week of drinking was something else. I finally started to really see how bad things were for me, and I went to rehab. And I'd never I had heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't really know that much about it, though. And when I got to rehab, that was the first time I'd ever seen the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. um when I got there, I drank on the way to rehab. I had my last drink. I My ex-wife took me to rehab, and I told her, "Hey, I want to run into the store real quick and get some gum." And I got some gum, and I came out of the store with a quart of beer too. And I'm drinking this quart of beer, and I finished that quart of beer in the parking lot at rehab. When I got out of the car, there was a security guard. He saw me drinking it, and he says, "I hope you enjoyed that, because you're not going to have any more around here." And if I'd have known now, if I'd have known then what I know now, I probably would have had 2 quarts of beer. Um, but I get there and I do the intake, you know, and and they got me on some medication. Uh, and the next morning, that was the first time I'd ever seen the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I saw that first step. We're powerless over alcohol, and our lives had become unmanageable. I didn't think that I didn't understand that the powerlessness over alcohol part, but I could identify with my life had become unmanageable. Um, Today, that unmanageability means something different than what I identified with it then. My life at that time was unmanageable. I was losing my job. I'd lost my family, my wife. My kids were. I was still real close with my kids, but that. I mean, how close can you really be when you're usually pretty intoxicated? I wasn't a real heavy, you know, staggering around drunk, but I needed to maintain about a 1.11 to a 0.15, or I was just not comfortable. I had 2 DUIs over the course of years of my drinking, and both times I blew a .11. I was ordered to go to jail after my second one, and I had to do a couple of days. They were spaced apart far enough that I didn't, get in a lot of trouble for it as far as jail goes. But I was ordered to go to jail and not to drink before I went to jail. I drank all the night before and tried to admit myself into jail, and they, you know, they're not too stupid down there at jail. And they said, "You been drinking?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, blow into this." And of course I was a .11, and I had to go back to the judge, and he gave me another couple of days. Um, I called my friend when they wouldn't let me in jail, and he picked me up, and he's the one that went to rehab too. He was still drinking at the time, so he wasn't driving. His wife was driving, and I got in the back seat, and I told his wife, I said, "Marina, I'm so bad they won't even let me into jail." And you know, we laughed about it. She said, "That's not funny. It's funny, but it's not funny." And that was a couple of years before I went to rehab. But you know that that unmanageability, like I said, how manageable, I just thought to myself, how manageable can my life be if I'm sitting here on a Monday morning in rehab, and when I'm, I don't miss work for anything when I should be at work. And then I, said, alcohol, your beer drinking and alcohol is what got you here. That's what's making your life unmanageable. So I kind of made a decision to myself that, I was going to do this. And, within a couple of days, I kind of started to understand that I was an alcoholic, and I kind of had this feeling that I just finally had found an explanation to what a lot of my problems were, that I was probably an alcoholic, whatever that meant at the time. I've come to understand what alcoholism is. I don't drink normally. I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol, whether whether you're born with that or that develops from drinking or whatever that case may be. I used to want to understand what made me an alcoholic, but after a while, I came to learn that it's not important. To me personally, it's not important what made me an alcoholic. It's just it was important for me to understand that I was an alcoholic, and I needed to admit to myself. And our big book says I need to admit to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic, and I need to accept that I'm an alcoholic. And when I do that, um, I'm I'm in a I'm on my way to maybe finding a solution to it. Um, like I said, I right after I got, you know, right before I went into rehab, my ex-wife told me that she had she had joined the army. She was still young enough to where she could get into the army, and that I didn't know really what that meant with the kids, but while she was away for the first part of that, when she went to basic training and stuff, that I would have the kids. And this was before I knew I was going to go to rehab. And that was another driver for my employer. My boss is like, "Dude, you gotta do something. You can't take care of those kids and and be the way you are. I mean, it's just not going to work." um so she, after I got out of rehab, we had about another 60 days. And then the kids, my two daughters, they were 13 and 15 when I got sober. And then she went into, she went into the army. and that was a kind of a big transition for the three of us. Um, One of my buddies said, your wife went into the army. She figured she would rather go to Afghanistan than live with you, man. And that was kind of a joke, but I think that was probably true to a certain extent. But after I got out of rehab, I didn't go to any meetings while I was at rehab. I was self-paid, and I, they they really wanted me to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was like, I'm in rehab. I want you guys to rehab me. I don't want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. When I got out of rehab, I made it for about a week, and they were really after me to go. I still had a counselor there, and they were really after me to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I really didn't want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I found myself in my room, and I had the door closed, and I'm like, man, you can't do this. And I wanted to go drink, and I'm like, you can't drink, and you're gonna have to find out. You're gonna have to figure something out. This bedroom and this bedroom door aren't going to keep you sober for very long, and I've got these deep resentments about everybody and everything. I'm mad at my boss, and I'm mad at my ex-wife. I hate a bunch of people, and I hate everything about everything, and I just don't know what to do. And I finally went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the meeting I went to was the Friday night speaker meeting. And I'd been reading, I'd been kind of I've been talking to a counselor, an outpatient counselor at rehab, and she's after me, and she's telling me to read stuff in the book, and I'm reading stuff in the book, and I'm trying to do this outpatient program and not go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I finally concede and go to Alcoholics Anonymous. That same day, she told me to she told me to read the chapter How It Works. And I was reading How It Works, and I'm reading it along, and I'm reading about I read the steps, and I'm reading about the director and the actor, and I'm reading this about how the actor, the director's trying to get things to go his own way, and how he's always trying to run the show. And if everybody would just fall in line, the show would go off great. And I'm reading this, and it not for 1 second dawned on me that I'm supposed to be reading it in the first person, and I'm supposed to be seeing that that's me, that I'm the director, I'm the one running the show. And I'm still so resentful that I could say that's what my boss acts like, and that's what my ex-wife acts like, and that's what this guy acts like. But I get to the meeting, and I've not, like I said, I'd never been to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous before. And it's a regular meeting, and then they read How It Works, and rarely have we seen a person, and I'm like, wow, I just read that, and I'm having this, wow, that's really wild, how what a coincidence that I just read that, and now they're reading it at this meeting, and I didn't know we read that at every dang meeting, but I thought that it was a big moment for me, and I sat through that meeting, and I remember the lady that spoke at that meeting, and I remember one thing that she said in that meeting was, and it stuck out, was that, there's 12 steps, and none of those steps are trying to figure things out. That's not in our steps, is figuring this out, or figuring this out on their own. And after that meeting, the secretary of that group was just so happens to be Dan. He was the secretary at the time. He came up to me after the meeting, introduced himself, and Beth was walking by, and he grabbed Beth and introduced me to Beth and said, "Hey, this is Brad. This is his first meeting," and a couple of other people. I can't remember everybody, but they introduced themselves to me. And I'm kind of trying to get out of there, but they're being nice to me and welcoming me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm just like, wow, this is kind of wild. But so I went to a meeting, and it wasn't that bad. And I can't remember if I went to a meeting the next night, but then that Sunday night I went to another meeting of alcoholics. I went to the No Name group, and it used to be a pretty big group. And I was sitting back by the door, and after that meeting, we all stood up and held hands and prayed. And of course, I'm not real comfortable with that, but my lo and behold, I'm getting ready to hightail it out the door as soon as the prayer's over, and I turn and Dan's standing right there again. And he says, "Hey, I'm Dan. You remember me from?" It's like, "Yeah, I remember you." And and he said, "Well, welcome. I saw you the other night, and welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous." And he asked me this, what I thought was the stupidest question I'd ever been asked. He says, "Are you an alcoholic?" I said, "Yeah, I'm an alcoholic." And at the time, I didn't know why he was asking me that question, but I do understand why he asked me that question now. I didn't even understand what an alcoholic was. I went to rehab for a month, and I never really, they tell you all about what alcoholism does to you and how it affects you and how it affects your life and what it does to your brain. But, we didn't read the doctor's opinion. We didn't get into the doctor's opinion and talk about alcoholism, and that it's that if I'm an alcoholic, I can't drink, and I have an abnormal reaction to it. We call it an allergy. I didn't understand any of that, but he gave me his card, and he says, "Well, if you want to talk about it, if you want to talk about anything, if you want to, just talk, you want to talk about alcohol, you want to talk about problems or anything like that, just give me a call." And I took his card, and I just was like, man, I gotta figure this out. And I think a couple of days later, I did call Dan, and we just talked. We just talked a couple minutes, and he told me about some meetings. He says, "It's a good idea that if you go to some more meetings and see if you identify with what's going on around here." And I started to do that, and and I kind of hem hot, He says, but however it went down, I eventually ended up, and I said, "Hey, I want to do these steps. I want to take the steps." Because what I've been hearing in all these meetings was everybody took the steps, and that's what they did, and they got sober. And I understood, I identified with, I believed all that they had to say about their drinking. And they said they had a lot of problems, before they quit drinking, before they came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I identified with some of their problems, and I was just so angry and resentful. I was it just was eating me up. And I thought that maybe I would be able to just learn how to deal with this stuff, because, these people had these resentments too, and they were telling me about them, and they seemed to be able to deal with it. And I thought, well, maybe I'm going to be able to learn how to just deal with these resentments and this anger that I've got, and deal with, wanting to drink and not being able to drink. And I don't know what they're doing, but, they keep talking about the steps, and relying on a power greater than themselves. And I finally went over to Dan's house, and Dan asked me if I had a sponsor, if I had anybody in mind. And I'm like, well, I've got a couple, this guy or that guy. And he says, well, you're going to need a sponsor, you know. And he kind of just left it at that for a second. And I was just kind of sitting there and didn't know what to say. And he goes, you're not asking them to marry you, you know. It's not like, it's not that big of a question. And then he just sat there again and let me sit on that. And I said, well, would you be my sponsor? He goes, yeah, sure. And we kind of talked. He says, I don't have like these heavy requirements for guys to do. He says, what I do want you to do is I want you to try and go to a meeting every day, for at least 90 days. I want you to try to go to a meeting every day. And I want you to call me, and something I do want you to do though is I want to go to at least one meeting a week with you. So I said, all right, that's not a big. He says, my home group is the Friday night speaker meeting, and you went to that meeting, and why don't you start going to that meeting, and then I'll see you there, and we can start doing that. And so I started going to these meetings, and then he gave me some. We do this step study guide, and he gave me some of these papers, and it's just a guide that kind of gets you into the book and has you kind of pick stuff out. And he had me read a doctor's opinion and Bill's story, and then we got together and we started talking about step one, and we kind of progressed. And I was going to these meetings, and then he told me, well, I'm going to my sponsor's house on Wednesday, and why don't you come over there with me? And I started going to his sponsor's house, and he had a house meeting. And then he had me going to the VA to pick up guys, the veterans. We have a veterans hospital here, and they have a dom there with guys that are trying to recover, and we'd pick some guys up there. And he was sending me over there to pick these guys up at the dom, and I'm like, I'm getting that standoffish thing again going, and that look on my face. And he's like, well, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. I'll do it because I don't want to drink. And, I'm just like, what do you mean you don't want to drink? You got 30 years. And, but he's still doing these things. And he's never asked me to do anything that, and, that's been my experience with anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't ask you to do things that we're not doing ourselves. We're asking you to be of service. He's asking me to be of service. He's asking me to do the steps. He's asking me to go to meetings and stuff, and I'm going to this house meeting with him, and there's all these guys around that I don't know, and I'm just scared out of my mind because I don't know anybody. And I was telling the guys the other night, I felt like a dang 5-year-old. And if he'd have held my hand, I probably would have held his hand. I was so scared of going to Alcoholics Anonymous. I just did not know how to act. And it was just something else. But I get through these steps, my 4-step experience was pretty good. I was having a real hard time getting an inventory together. And it went on for several weeks. And he finally says, well, what do you got going there? Just bring me over what you got. And, I bring him a resentment list, a grudge list. I just couldn't get my head wrapped around it. And we sat down and we did an inventory. He helped me get through that inventory, and we're doing a 5th step at the same time. And, if he'd have just sent me home, do an inventory, and if you don't get it done, then you're not going to be able to do it. He didn't do that. He brought me into the house, and he helped me get through that. And then he sent me home, and I went and did the 6th and 7th step. I pretty much just did lip service on that. It's like I didn't understand it, but I did what I could. And and I moved on to these amends, and I started making some amends, and things started to change for me. When I was facing these people that that I that I felt that I'd wronged, I started with some easy stuff. I started with some of the guys at work, and trying to straighten things out with them and saying, "Hey, man, I know what I was doing, and you know, I know what kind of a pain in the ass I was, and I don't want to act like that anymore." And some of the guys were, they were glad to hear that stuff, and some of the other guys, my real good friend Russ, he's like, "You know what? Just save it, man. Just save it. I don't want to hear it." He says, "I want to see it," you know, and and that was fine. And you know, we're really close, good friends now, and we were before, and we are still. And he didn't want to talk about it. He dang sure didn't want to hear that I'm trying to have a spiritual experience and stuff like that. Other people do. Um, you know, what we got to do is what we got to do, and how people accept us is it's just the way it is sometimes. I was able to get things straightened out with my ex-wife, so to speak, for the most part. And that took a lot of time. I did a lot of damage there. We did a lot of damage to each other. And I was able to get over the stuff that I felt like she had wronged me with. And I started doing this 10th step and looking at stuff every day and knowing that I got to find a different way to react to life. And you guys taught me how to do that. You taught me how to read the big book. You taught me what my sponsor taught me what Alcoholics Anonymous is and what we do at Alcoholics Anonymous. And he put me in contact with other people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got involved with the group. I became the group secretary. Again, I was only about 18 months sober. And one of the jobs for the secretary at the time was to go find speakers. And he'd taken me to some different meetings, and then he just kind of left me on my own. And I had to go up and I had to start finding speakers for this group. And I was still just scared to death of you guys. Again, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm just asking you to speak at the dang meeting. But it was still really scary, and but that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And it really got me out of myself. I was able to start going to these meetings by myself and introducing myself to people and talking to people. And you guys became a lot less scary every time I went to a meeting. I started, some meetings you go to, it's like, there's Bill, there's Greg, there's this guy. You're always at these meetings, and you get to know each other. I didn't really want to hang around with you that much, but I really started to get into this fellowship. I just wanted to go. When I first got here, I just wanted to go to meetings, do what I had to do, and get out of there. I just kept waiting for something to happen. Our book talks about in working with others, how frequent contact with newcomers and each other is the bright spot of our lives. And that was something that didn't really resonate with me at first, but man, has that become so true for me now. I really miss going to live meetings, but what we have going with this Zoom, it's the next best thing. Frequent contact with you guys and newcomers it really is something special for me. It is the bright spot, one of the bright spots in my life. I raised my daughters. Their ages, like I said, they were 13 and 15. They're 23 and 25 now. I was so, I thought I knew what I was doing. I was so lost, I didn't know how to raise kids by myself. I didn't know how to, especially daughters, a couple of teenage daughters. I don't know how many of you guys have experienced teenage daughters or 2 years apart from each other, but they can be kind of a handful, to say the least. I developed a relationship with my girls that I can't believe. They think the world of me. My oldest daughter, she's married and lives down in Tucson. And my youngest daughter, she just finished her nursing program, got licensed, and um, this past Monday started a new job up at Flagstaff as a registered nurse. I'd like to think that Alcoholics Anonymous had a lot to do with that, and me praying to God and asking for some patience and understanding, and trying to help these girls do their best. They, my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, she's kind of odd as far as us alcoholics are concerned. She stayed out of mischief. She didn't do a lot of drinking and running around and hell raising. My youngest daughter, she was a handful, but she was a real hard worker. I got this about almost 5 years ago. I met my girlfriend Kim, and she happens to be a registered nurse. There's no way that I would have ever been able to get this woman to be my girlfriend the way it was before I got sober. I'd like to think that me being sober helped me get this wonderful woman into my life. And my daughter just thinks the world of her. I mean, she looks up to her. She helped her so much through her nursing school and stuff. It was like I needed to get sober so that I could get this great woman into my life, and she could get my daughter through nursing school and help her get her job. I was just kind of thinking about all that the other day. She's a great gal, and there's no way that I would have been able to get a girlfriend or a woman in my life like that without being sober. And it took a lot more than just being sober. I learned how to raise my daughters by being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not like I'm coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and asking you guys about problems with my daughters, or how do I do this, or how do I do that. But what happened was I learned how to live life. I learned how to do things differently than just relying on my own way of doing things. I learned how to rely on a power greater than myself, and ask for some direction, ask for what's the next right thing to do. And a lot of times that's just being patient and being encouraging, and just letting things go the way they're going to go. I tried to, being forceful with my daughters and telling them that you got to go like this and you got to go like that, and I don't want you doing that. Instead of doing that kind of stuff with them, all I really did was just share my experiences of life with them, when I was a teenager, and what things were like for me, and just be real with them, and talk to them like people, and not like I'm some forceful dictator on them. And things seem to turn out pretty good with them. She just moved to Flagstaff. She stayed here until she got out of school. She went to Yavapai here. She went to Grand Canyon for a year, and she decided she wanted to go to Yavapai instead. So, I'm newly in the house by myself. I miss having her around, but I've got some dogs here. I acquired my first daughter's dog when she left. She had to have a dog, and now my youngest daughter had to have a dog a couple of years ago, so now I got her dog, and I've got another dog that I acquired. So I've got the 3 dogs, and it's my girlfriend and I get together when we can. She's pretty busy. I mean, like I said, she's a registered nurse, so she's been busy with this COVID thing, and you know, she's got her deal that she's doing at her house, and I'm doing my thing at my house, and we do what we can to get together. But I used to wonder what the heck I'm going to do when I was scared when I first got sober. What am I going to do when my girls leave? You know, that's only a couple of years away, and I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to stay sober, or I wouldn't be able to do this. And you know, I got pretty excited about it at first, and then I finally said, wait. That's not what we do here. We're not worrying about what's going to happen in 3 years down the road. We're going to go ahead and take care of what we're doing right now in this moment. And when I take care of if I take care of right now and stay in this moment, then things seem to take care of themselves down the road. I've got to do the right thing today if I expect tomorrow to be okay. And the thing that I've come to learn in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I am okay. You know, big things happen to us. Life takes some heavy turns. We get smacked around all the time, but we learn how to be okay with it. Yeah, there's some tough stuff that comes to everybody, but we learn how to react to it. Take a breath. Don't get too excited. Don't just pause. Things are okay, you know. And if there's people that I can get a hold of and talk to about it. I've learned how to just, say, you know what, you're okay. Trust God. Take the next right step, and you're going to be all right with this. You know, I thought I was just going to have to learn how to deal with these problems that I had. I thought that these resentments were never going to go away. I was just going to be all right with it. I'm going to learn how to deal with this drinking thing and just not drink anymore. But what happened was something completely different than that. What happened was these problems were removed. I learned how to pray for forgiveness for other people. And, in and of myself, I can't just say I forgive you, but I do start to pray for them. And I ask God to give me the grace of forgiveness. And it makes a difference. I didn't want to pray for people when I first got sober, and I didn't want to pray for them for a while after that either. But I've learned how to do that, and it makes a difference. There's so many promises in our book, and there's more than just the 9-step promises. We learn how to rely on a power greater than ourselves, and it changes our lives. The solution to Alcoholics Anonymous is to have a spiritual experience as a result of taking the steps. When we take these steps, if you take them thoroughly and honestly, something's going to happen. When we take these looks at ourselves, we straighten up our past, we rely on God, we help other people. Some things are going to change for us. And it's what happened for me. My sponsor and a lot of other people in Alcoholics Anonymous taught me what to do. They taught me how to be of service to other people. And I've been sober for 10 years. And I don't think about getting drunk when shit hits the fan. It's just, we react sanely and normally. Anyway, I am glad to be here. I'm glad to speak at my home group. And it's good to see everybody. Thanks.